So I've helped open 30 restaurants from the ground up, and I pulled all the data from all 30 restaurants over the years since they've been open. And here is the biggest profit killer. Now, these statistics are gonna blow your mind, but before I jump into that, I just wanna say that right now we're in the beautiful Tampa Bay, Florida, sunny, beautiful weather, and we're here to work with Ponte. And if you don't know about Ponte, it's an American modern steakhouse that's taking Florida by storm. And the chef owner, Chef Ponte, has done an amazing job coming up with not only a beautiful restaurant with an amazing wine list, but an absolutely unique menu that's approachable but delicious. And he's creating experiences. And I've came in for this very reason to avoid the profit killer that we're about to jump into and talk to his staff about some mindset training around hospitality and how to elevate things to the next level. We're always working with restaurants to take them from great to greatness, showing them how to grow and scale, and Ponte is no exception. They're an amazing restaurant that's doing very well, but they're not resting on their laurels. They're here to execute a high level, and they're always trying to get better, and that's why they brought me in. But to understand the profit killer, you really have to understand what goes before it. Now, here's a common trend I see with restaurants, especially when they're opening. The owner is willing to pour money into aesthetics, into menu development, into marketing, kitchen equipment, all the things that you'd expect to. But one thing they never focus on is culture. Culture always ends up on the back burner. And now let me explain. So first of all, we want to train our staff, right? So they're teaching their staff, and they're always teaching their staff the basics. That's number one, right? We're going to teach them steps of service. We're going to teach them some hospitality basics of training, right? Make sure you treat every guest like their family. Make sure you wow every single guest. Make sure you go above and beyond for every guest. Treat every guest like they're a VIP. Treat every guest like they're the only person in the room. But what is that telling them? What are you actually training someone when you say those things, right? Does that paint a clear picture in anyone's head? If you've been managing and running restaurants long enough or owning long enough, you know that that goes right over the trainee's head. Right? It goes in one ear, out the other, because they've heard it a million times and it doesn't equate to anything. It's not a training process, those are just words. Now, here's one thing you want to consider when it comes to culture. Mediocre training results in mediocre results. Why I'm saying that is the statistics show that the key to long-term profitable restaurants is giving the guest a consistent, elevated hospitality experience. The key word there is consistent. Now, the data shows us that restaurants without that amazing, consistent, elevated hospitality experience have around a 25% customer retention rate, which is not enough to be profitable. It might be enough to survive or toe the line, but not enough to be profitable at a high level. But the restaurants that did have that amazing, consistent, elevated hospitality experience had a customer retention rate of 75%. Okay, triple. Those are the restaurants that are thriving. Those are the restaurants that are able to grow and scale. Those are the restaurants that are able to withstand the test of time. Those are the restaurants that turn into multi-unit restaurants. So what is an amazing, elevated hospitality experience? Let's break it down. First, you have to provide an amazing hospitality experience. I know this sounds confusing, but let me explain. Remember one thing, steps of service are just service. If we're sitting there training our staff to steps of service, then they're gonna give steps of service as the experience. Service is a business transaction. Hospitality is a personal experience. In 2001, Chick-fil-A consulted with Ritz-Carlton to create their elevated hospitality experience. And with that, they went from 1 billion in 2001 to 25 billion in 2025. Now, the owners of Chick-fil-A credit their huge jump in revenue over the last 25 years to their staff knowing the difference between hospitality and service and how to give the guests hospitality. They truly believe in that. They live and breathe the fact that hospitality is what made them so successful over time to build that brand value. And I would ask you this, think about these two brands, Popeyes and Chick-fil-A. Which one is more luxury in your head? Most people would say Chick-fil-A. Now, they both serve the same food, right? Basically, fried chicken. And they're both the same price. So why is Chick-fil-A seem like more of a luxury brand to you in your head? That's because Chick-fil-A offers a consistent, elevated hospitality experience. Now, the Chick-fil-A owners knew they can only do this and accomplish this after consulting with Ritz-Carlton by giving their staff the training and the systems in order to create the culture that they needed in order to give that consistent, elevated hospitality experience. So, What you want to focus on, the profit killer you want to avoid, is focusing on giving your guests a personable, orchestrated, and elevated hospitality experience that's supported by the host, supported by your food runners, supported by your bussers, supported by your servers, your bartenders, your managers, supported by everybody in the restaurant, even the kitchen staff. Everyone has the same mission, the same goal, and the same job description to give every single guest the best experience possible. Everybody has that job description. Everybody has that mission, that vision, and that goal. Then you're gonna make the experience consistent through systems. You're gonna use systems to make it consistent. Now, what that's going to do is develop a culture of excellence, a culture that gives the guests the best experience possible, a culture that gives your staff full buy-in, a culture that's easy to spread, a culture that your managers can get behind, a culture that your managers can use to get your staff bought in, and the proven way to create a culture of excellence, the one that Ritz-Carlton's embodies, and now the one that Chick-fil-A embodies, and hopefully the one that your restaurant can embody. But this is how you avoid the biggest profit killer, which is lack of guest retention through lack of elevated hospitality or lack of consistency of the elevated hospitality. Those are the two driving forces that absolutely kill your guest retention, which ultimately becomes the biggest profit killers for restaurants. Now, people can argue with me all day long and talk to me about rent, and talk to me about labor, and talk about food costs, and talk to me about marketing. But at the end of the day, the 30 restaurants I work with had great menus, great locations, but they lacked sorely in elevated hospitality experiences because they lacked the culture, because they were missing the systems and the training and the leadership to fully support it, fully embody it. Now, how do we solve this problem? What do we do to get to that culture piece that we need to get to the culture of excellence? Well, first of all, you're gonna have to have the foundation, which is training and systems. Those are the big pieces of the puzzles. Consistent training and elevated training. You need to have trained trainers that are training your staff that know how to train, because training is a skill set, not just a natural born gift, and not just because you're the best at something means that you can train people on it. Just because you're the best server does not mean you're gonna be the best trainer. So we gotta make sure we're moving up the right people. And then you have to have leadership that can support that training and systems. If your leadership team can't support it, then this is gonna be all for nothing. You have to have a trained leadership team. Training managers into leaders is simple. Not easy, but simple. Once you have all those pieces in together and you're monitoring it as an owner and you're making sure that all of it's being executed at a high level, then you'll start creating a culture. The culture will be excellence. Now, make no mistake, you're developing culture whether you like it or not. You're developing culture whether you intend to or not. So you're developing culture right now. My question to you is, what is that culture? Because if you're lacking training, you're lacking systems, you're lacking proper leadership or leadership at all, then it's probably not the culture you want, and it might end up being the biggest profit killer. Now, if you don't believe me, take Ponte, for example. They own Ponte, they own Olivia, and multiple other locations that are highly successful. Right now, Olivia has lines out the door. They've actually capped how many people they'll take in a day because they're focused on excellence. I've worked with the owner, worked with the director of operations. We've had many, many conversations about this and what is their strategy. And it's as simple as we talked about. Support through training, high-level systems, advanced leadership, leading them to create a culture of excellence. Everyone in their staff is trained consistently and properly, which makes them feel supported, gives them the tools to succeed. Every manager is turned into a leader that can properly lead and manage the systems. The systems they put in place are there for structure, for the staff, and for the management to have something to manage. You always want your leadership team managing systems, not people. If you're managing people, it turns into micromanaging and it doesn't work. You're gonna get mixed results. If you manage your systems, you can control your systems and therefore control the flow of your business and how everything operates. So that's what Ponte does at a high level. They've used it and it works. You see their numbers, see their reviews, look at them online. They're wildly popular, reviews through the roof. Their goal is to give the guests the best experience possible. Their goal is to make sure that they're chasing a culture of excellence. And with that, they've become wildly successful. Now, they've made the blueprint and they follow the blueprint that someone else has already laid out. These are not new teachings. These are blueprints that work. But you have to have the dedication and the vision, long-term vision, to create a culture of excellence. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's not going to be in a training document. It's not going to be a magical manager that you hire overnight, and you can't will it. You have to create it. And you have to create it with structures. You have to create it with systems and training and proper leadership. And I promise you, if you start on this path, you're going to see results faster than you expected, And at the end of the day, it's gonna be the best decision you ever made.